Welcome, everyone. I see a bunch of you popping in here. I often feel like you look like the Brady Bunch when all the windows start to pop in. Hey there. Good to see you. And Carlos, I think you said you're going to kick us off here, if I heard that correctly.
No, there's no intro. It's all you, Anna.
All right, I'll kick us off then. So, well, it's great to see a lot of you guys. I see a lot of you have your screens off. If able, I would love to see your faces. It's definitely a lot more fun getting to see your face, getting to see your name, and making those connections. So if you're able to turn on your camera, I invite you to do that. And I would love for you to utilize the chat box and tell me, one, how far along are you in Christmas shopping? Two, what is your position? And three, what motivated you to join us today? So number one, Christmas shopping status. Number two, what is the position you have within your team? So maybe you're the team leader, maybe you're an inside sales agent, maybe you're an agent. And then number three, what motivated you to join today's webinar? So great to see some familiar faces. I see you, Jill, there in Boise. Nice to see you. And I'll go ahead and introduce myself real quick, and then we're really going to jump in very quickly into today's content. I want to give you maximum time here to maximize this. So my name's Anna Krueger. I used to be a teacher and said I would never do business or sales. Here I am now doing business and sales. And that being said, when I got into sales, I was actually very bad at it because I had no training. I was a teacher. My mindset was that's not something I would ever do. And I got into sales because of a temp job and ended up loving sales. Who knew? So I learned a few language patterns that quickly took me from the lowest performer on my team to the top performer on the team. And so today I'm going to bring you some of those language patterns. So I'm excited to bring these to you. We're going to talk specifically about how to set more appointments and actually have them show up. That's kind of big, right? And then we're also going to talk about how do you get the signature. So what I find a lot of times as a lead generation coach with maps, frequently people will say, I need more business. And let me ask all of you, you can unmute yourself, you can use a chat box. What do most people go to when they say, I need more business? What's the go-to that they usually have?
Expireds.
Expireds. What else?
Social media.
Social media. Yes, that's another common thing. What else? Let's hear one more.
Open houses.
Open houses, yeah. And what I'm hearing you guys say is we need more closings, we need more business. And so all the answers you guys just gave went directly towards lead gen. We need more contacts, right? Yeah, I noticed something where a lot of people that we coach through maps, they actually do pretty decently with their contact to set ratio, meaning if you talk to someone, you're usually pretty good at actually setting that appointment. However, people would get way more for their time and effort if they were to focus on the appointments they're already setting, just getting more of them to show up. So think about your own business. You know, if you're not talking to enough people, then clearly, yes, let's increase contacts. But I'm going to operate under the assumption that you're talking to 100-ish people a week. If you're an agent, if you're an inside sales agent, you're probably talking to 200 people-ish a week. Is that fair? Pretty decent assumption. So if that's the case for you and you want more business, I'm going to just take a stab in the dark that if we can just help you take the appointments you're already setting and simply get more of them to show up and actually sign, that would actually be more transformative than actually just getting more people in the door. Does that make sense? Because if we can get them in the door and actually convert them, we won't need as many people to come in the door, right? Obviously, more contacts leads to more business. Yet I want to help you be more efficient. So what we're going to talk about today is how to set the expectation that they're going to sign with you. Then we're going to talk about how to set appointments that actually show up. And then we're going to talk about how do you own your calendar. How many of you, and just use the chat box, just put a yes or a no. How many of you feel like your client kind of controls your calendar? Meaning I'm kind of, if they want to meet, I feel like I just need to meet them, right? And that is a very common thing is a lot of people, and I think it's coming from that vein of customer service, but if they want to meet, then we need to meet. And that might be true to a point. Maybe there's a deadline. We want to see the house to know if we want to write an offer. Yet I would guess that you have a lot more control over your schedule or could have a lot more control over your schedule if you apply the tactics we're going to use today. So let's go ahead and jump into those. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start talking about what does it sound like to set the appointment. So let me define appointment real quick, because I've learned different people define appointment differently. So let me just ask you guys, how do you define an appointment? What does that mean? And maybe a better way to ask the question is, if you set an appointment with someone, what are they expecting when they meet with you? What are they think it's for? So let's hear from a couple of you.
Touring the area.
Yeah, so maybe we're going to drive the area, get to know what's going on out there. What else? I see Jill typed in, the goal is to get them to agree to work with us. So it's basically an interview, right? Are we going to work together? I like how Sophie said it, a date with an agent. Tara,
it's a needs assessment face-to-face and a decision to work together.
Yes, yeah. And if you can see, even in the chat box to what people are saying unmuted, can you see that we have a variety of answers, right? Maybe we're meeting to show the area. Maybe we're meeting to give them a CMA, what the value of their house is. Maybe we're meeting to actually agree to work together. So I'm going to define what I mean when I say appointment. If you define it differently, that's okay. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page for today's training. So when I say meeting for an appointment, what I mean is if I set an appointment with Felicia, Felicia knows we're meeting to decide whether or not to work together. So I have talked to her. I know, say she's a seller. I know what she thinks her house is worth. I might not have done a CMA just yet, but she knows and I know what she thinks her house is worth. I know who the decision makers are. I know who's on the deed or the title. I know the condition of that. I know a lot of stuff because I spent about 15 minutes on the phone with Felicia asking her a lot of questions. And at the end of that, we agreed really the next step would be to meet together. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. If they're a buyer, it would mean I know what their timeline is. I know whether or not they're pre-approved. I know generally what they're looking for, what their price, what their price point is. I know who the decision makers are. So again, I've probably spent 10, 15 minutes on the phone, and we know that we're meeting to decide, are we going to work together? So when I say appointment, that's what I mean for today's purposes. So let's assume we're on the phone. I've already gotten their motivation. I've already uncovered their pre-qualification status, which is all the logical stuff, the seller stuff, the buyer stuff. And we've concluded it's really the next step would be to meet together. So let me put on screen what we would say next. All right. By the way, using this, I tracked this for several months with our team, almost a year. And what I found when using this, what I'm about to give you, 90% of sellers signed with us. Average in the country is 80. So using what you're getting today, 90% would sign with us on the seller side. 95% would sign with us on the buyer side. So we're talking 10 to 15% above average. Average is 80. Okay. All right. So what this sounds like is your next step is to meet with, and if you're an agent, maybe yourself, you would say to meet with me. If I'm an ISA setting for Janet, I would say your next step is to meet with Janet and do 3 things. That's step 1. Now, quick question. How many of you are setting appointments for other people? Would you use the chat box real quick? So you're setting appointments. Maybe you're an inside sales agent. Maybe you're an agent on the team, but you set for other agents on your team. Looks like both. Okay. It looks like we have a wide array there. Okay. So let me give you a tip. This isn't on the slide, so I'm just going to give you a little tip. If you're setting for someone that's not you, and you can even do this if it's for yourself, but it's easier and it's very easy actually to do this for someone else. So say that I'm setting an appointment for Cindy and I want to build this person up to get them super pumped to meet with Cindy. I'm going to say things, make sure they're true, but I'm going to have some statistics and some qualities about Cindy that's going to appeal to this person. So I might say, you're going to love working with Cindy. She's actually got incredible work ethic. She actually has worked with this many buyers or this many sellers. She's very on point with communication and just whatever I know to be true about Cindy. So for those of you that set appointments for other people, it's important that you know something about the people you're setting appointments for because you want to highlight it. I look at it kind of like the game of basketball. If I'm passing the ball to the person who's going to dunk it or do the layup, they can't do the layup if I don't pass the ball to them correctly, right? They could be a skilled basketball player. They could be in the right position. But if I fail passing the ball to them, they're not even going to get the opportunity to do the layup, right? Any basketball fans out there? I love basketball. So true story, I was setting an appointment for an agent on our team named Annalisa. And Annalisa, by the way, had never sold a home. This was going to be her first listing appointment by herself. She was fresh out of training, had never sold a home. So those of you that are on this call and you're like, oh, I don't really have statistics, I've never sold anything before, this is especially for you. But I knew Annalisa was a marathon runner. Which that tells you a lot of dedication, right? Like, she is dedicated to doing hard things. If you're a marathon runner, you know how to do hard things. She had incredible work ethic. And just from being friends with her in the office, I thought, if I'm ever in a fight with someone, I want her on my side because she really defends the people that she loves. So I said that to the lead. I was an inside sales agent, and I was like, you're going to love working with Annalisa. You know, she has incredible work ethic. If I was in a fight with someone, I'd want her on my side. She's a great negotiator. All things that were true, even though she had never sold a house. Well, the day of the appointment, guess what? Annalisa got sick. So I called the lead and I said, hey, I just want to give you a heads up. You're going to meet with Haro of the Haro Group, right? So that should tell you he's a good agent. The Haro Group. You're going to meet with Haro of the Haro Group. And you know what they said? Oh man, like we were pretty pumped about meeting with Annalisa. Like, can we wait till she comes in? Like, we were really excited to meet her. And the point I'm getting here is it taught me, if I'm setting an appointment for someone else, I have a significant impact on how bought in that client is to working with the agent, right? Like, they were not wanting to meet with the founder of our company because they were so excited to meet Annalisa and they had never spoken to her. So for those of you that set appointments for other people, make sure that you find things, get to know them, get to know their work ethic, get to know their statistics so you can build them up as you're introducing the idea of them to the client. Make sense? Good. I see a good question in here. How would you build yourself up if you're setting an appointment for yourself? So let me ask all of you. We have 200 some people on this webinar, which is awesome. Thanks for being here today. How would you do that? Let's hear from some of you. Don't be shy. We need your expertise. Is it quiet because this is a struggle? Know your unique selling proposition. Lori says, know your stats. Go ahead, I hear someone unmuted.
Well, I got licensed a long time ago, and I think that I would have to go back and talk about my passion for real estate, how excited I was to go get my first class under me at the age of 18. It's just been a passion I've always had, is putting people and houses together. So listening to them and their concerns makes me one of the agents that's going to get them the fastest results.
Yeah. And you know what I loved about what you just said, Sherry, is you did preface it with, I got my license a long time ago. But when you really started talking, you didn't necessarily drop any past numbers. Now, if you have numbers to share, share those. But if you don't have numbers to share yet, Sherry, you were really talking about your passion, right? So that's what I would recommend to you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sherry.
Right. And it's because
Go ahead.
It's because I'm getting back in, right? Because I'd left and gone to corporate America. So getting back in.
Yeah. Well, there you go. This is perfect for you then. So yeah, I see what Chris says there in the chat box. I'm resilient. I'm a negotiator, or past clients have said this about me. You know, if you've been in the business for a while, something I used to like to say, I might say, you know, Ryan, I think that our team is great, or I wouldn't work here. I would go work somewhere else. But here's the thing. You probably are thinking I'm saying that because I work here. So how about this? If you go to Google, or you could say Facebook, or whatever platform you want to use, and look at our reviews, you can read what past clients have had to say about us. That's not me. Now, obviously, if you don't have past client reviews on there, you wouldn't say that, right? But that was one thing that we used to leverage, and just that idea of I wouldn't work here if I didn't think it was a great place. I really think these people are here to help. Now, if it's for yourself, if you're a single agent, again, talk about your qualities. So what sold Annalisa was her work ethic. She had a tenacity to do hard things. I think I mentioned to them that she was a marathon runner. I don't know that for certain, but I know that's what was in my head when I was talking to them. So share with them, like, you've done stuff in the past that got you to where you are today, right? Talk about that stuff. And that's okay. What I like to do when I'm teaching, and you all can tell me how this sounds. I think it sounds fine, but you can give me feedback. But when I'm teaching and I don't know the class or they don't know me, I'll just say, hey, I know what it's like to be in a class with someone that you don't know, wondering, why are they talking to me about this topic? Like, what's their street cred? So that being said, let me just tell you a little about myself to put your mind at ease. And then I'll share how I used to be terrible at sales. And then I became number one on the team, and I've been coaching and training now for almost 20 years. And I'll put more words to that. But does that sound okay to you all as class participants? Yeah, so you give context. I know what it's like to work with someone you don't know. So let me share a little bit to put you at ease. Also, when we meet, we can talk more about how we may or may not be a good fit to work together. Make sense? Cool. So all that was extra. None of that was in the slides. But I thought it was worth mentioning, since so many of you do work for teams where you're setting appointments for other people. Get to know the people you're setting appointments for and build them up. Get them excited to meet with the people you're setting appointments for, or also for yourself. Okay, so again, we're assuming I've already talked to them. I've gotten their motivation. I have pre-qualified them. I know all the financials. I know who the decision makers are. I know all that stuff. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, our next step is, or your next step is, to meet with me. Maybe it's to meet with Susan. Depends on your context. And in that meeting, we're going to do 3 things. So make sure you're writing this down. This will make you money. This will make you money. Okay, step number 1. We're going to go back over your motivation and price. We're going to go back over your motivation and price. Now, if I'm setting it for myself, I might add in there, I just want to make sure we're absolutely on the same page once we're in person. If I'm setting it for someone else, I might say, I'm going to let Donna know what we've talked about today, but she'll want to go further with you. Okay? Because again, I'm assuming we've talked about this when we pre-qualified them. So number 1, we're going to go back over your motivation and price. Number 2, we're going to interview each other to make sure we are a mutually good fit. Now, let me ask you, unmute yourself or use the chat box. Why would we say number 2, we're going to interview each other to make sure it is a mutually good fit? There's a psychology there.
Gives you an out if it isn't a good match or business that you don't want.
Yeah.
And it gives them an out too. Makes it less threatening.
Yes, it makes it less threatening. Also, I just know, because I was an inside sales agent, so my number 1 thing was to set appointments that showed up. That was like all that I did. Set appointments, make sure they show up. And what I found is it wasn't we need your listing, we need your listing, we need your listing, we need your listing. By saying this, it kind of leveled it a little bit of, hey, we're going to interview each other. And especially when working with expireds, I used to tell them, I know that we can sell your house. I just want to make sure we can sell your house and have you be happy at the end. So if we meet Janet and the numbers don't work, we'll tell you. We're not going to list your house and put you through what you just went through with another agent. So if we meet, we don't think we can make you happy at the end of the day, we're not going to list your house just to have a listing. Okay. And I found that they actually really appreciated that. Right. A lot of you are in coaching. So if a coach said, or if I said to you, hey, let's talk and just see if we're a good fit. Let's mutually make sure you feel like I'm a good fit for you. You seem like a good fit for what I coach and train. Great. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. I'll find someone else for you. So it just helps with taking some of that pressure off and lets them know it's a 2-way interview here. What thoughts or questions do you have on that number 2? Interviewing each other. Anything? We're good? Is everybody in Christmas mode?
I think the general consensus of number 2 is that I think most of the perception of the public is every agent will take any business they can get.
Yeah.
And that in itself sets you apart because it tells them that I'm being very selective in who I choose to do business with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And isn't that the case? Haven't we all met people and we realize they're unreasonable with their expectation? And actually, if I list that house, it's just going to sit there and it's going to hurt them. It's going to hurt us. It's not going to help anybody to list that house. I went to a house once and I only tell you stories to just add some oomph to, yes, this really works. But we had already said all this, but I went to a house to preview it. And the lady was like, "You're not Haro." And I was like, "Right, I'm here to preview the house." And she's like, "Well, no, I only want to meet with Haro. That's the Haro group." And I said, "Well, this is our process. Like, I'm actually here to interview you just as much as you're interviewing me right now." And I just kind of looked her in the eye. It was comical. Her whole tone changed. And she said, "Well, come on in." And she said, "I just took cookies out of the oven. And do you want some coffee?" But the difference was I need your listing. I need your listing. I'm desperate. It was, "Hey, I'm here to interview you just as much as you're here to interview me. And this is our process." Just unemotional about it.
I saw a training once where they talked about that and they said, it's like we're dating before we decide to get married.
Right. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. So I just recommend that. It actually increases the value of working with you because you're not a definite. So it increases the value. All right. So number 1, we're going to go back over motivation and price. Number 2, we're going to interview each other to make sure we're a mutually good fit. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork. And if you've ever been in Bold, they talk about the downswing. So as you practice this, if you can see my video there, do the downswing and do your hand with it when you practice to help you go sign paperwork. It's an embedded command. When your voice goes down like that, sign paperwork. Show up to class. Take notes. It subconsciously sends the message that this is something you need to do. So, and then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. And then almost without a breath, you say, "Any questions?" with a downswing. Any questions? So let me put all this together for you, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it, and then we'll get into the schedule part of things. So again, I've been on the phone maybe 10 minutes. I know their motivation. I've already asked them all the financial, all the logical questions, timeline, and now I'm just setting the appointment, buyer or seller. All right, Janet, really the next step is to meet with us and do 3 things. Number 1, we'll go back over your motivation and price. 2, interview each other, make sure it's a mutually good fit. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? And notice there's barely a breath. Sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Why do you think we emphasize the downswing and we don't allow the pause? What's the reason for that? And I share this because the more you know why you're doing what you're doing, you'll use the script better. So why is there no pause? Why are we emphasizing the downswing?
I would think because you're definitely looking for the yes or no. You're not looking for a dialogue. It's, do you understand what I said? Are we moving forward?
Right. Yeah, it's just, this is what's going to happen. I find a lot of times if you just assume they're working with you, they're going to work with you. Where we get into trouble as agents is we wonder too much if they're going to work with us. Just assume they're working with you. So we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. And then if everything looks good, we'll sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Also, what happens when someone's confident? When someone is confident, it removes concerns. So a lot of times, because I coach lead generation with maps, that's my one thing is lead gen, lead conversion. If I have someone and they say, "I don't know what it is," I get tons of objections to signature. Almost always, without exception, it's because when they're delivering the same words that you just saw on the screen, but they're saying it tentatively. Okay, so let me give you an example of what not to do, because sometimes that's helpful. So what not to do, all the same words, but not to do. Let's see, number 1, we'll go back over your motivation and price. It's almost hard to do. Your voice is gonna go up. Number 2, we'll interview each other to make sure a mutually good fit. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we'll sign paperwork to activate the next step. Pause. Any questions? That's what not to do. That's what not to do. So what I recommend is when you're practicing this, record yourself and pay attention to, am I going down? Even when I'm saying a question, is my voice going down as if it's a statement? Any questions? We will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Got it? So your confidence will remove objections. Now, why are we bringing up paperwork here? Well, remember, 90% of buyers sign, 90% of sellers sign, 95% of buyers sign when you use that language. Okay, so it absolutely works. Here's the thing, is I kind of want to poke them a little to see, let's say I'm talking to Eric, and I say this to Eric, and he's like, whoa, what do you mean sign stuff? Like, I'm always the person, I like to think things over. Okay, Eric, what kind of things would you need to think over to be confident signing? And I'm going to write it down what he says. And because he said that, I already know in the appointment, I'm going to tell him, hey, Eric, we've talked about everything. I know you like to think things over. I actually have a call I need to make that'll take me about 10 minutes. So what if I step out, make the call? You can have a minute to think this over, talk with your spouse or whoever, and then I'll come back in 10 minutes. Would that work for you? Okay, great. And now, because I brought it up in the call, I already had an idea of what objection he might have in person, and I was prepared to deal with it. Make sense? Sometimes people will say, what, paperwork? What's that mean? And I like to just describe it and say, hey, we'll talk more about that in person. But it's just like pretty much anywhere else you go, when you enter into a business partnership with someone, you sign something saying we're working together. Oh, okay. So I find if you can relate it to something they're used to. How many of you have been to the dentist? You had to sign something. Doctor, sign something. There's a contractor in my house right now. That's why the door is shut, because there's noise. I have tiles going in my kitchen right now. Guess what we did? We signed something. So it's not weird to sign something. So if you can just relate it to something they're familiar with, that will actually help ease their anxiety. Okay, we're about to get into how to pick a time. Any questions on the setup of the signature? Ask quickly so we can move on. All right, looks like we're good. So now let's.
Quick question. Sorry.
Yeah.
What is your response to a buyer or seller who, when paperwork is asked to be signed, they tell you that they're interviewing another agent?
So that would actually be an uncovering objection pattern. That would be the knee-jerk reaction. I'll give it to you quickly. We don't have time to coach on all that today.
Okay.
But basically, Victoria, it would be, I'm so glad you told me. What's important to you about interviewing other agents? Tell me more about that. Okay, so what you're looking for is blah, 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 right? Okay, great. So basically, I'm so glad you told me, question.
Okay.
What's important to you about that? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't mean to short circuit it. That just, in Mastering Inside Sales, which is the class I teach with MAPS, we spend a whole hour just on the uncovering pattern.
Okay.
But that is the essence. I'm glad you told me what's important to you about that.
Thank you.
That's the main idea. Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going now on how to pick a time. So this works really well. There's a lot of psychology. We've got about 15 minutes. We're going to wrap up here and get you guys on your way. So setting appointments, how do you pick a time? So you just said we're going to do these 3 things. Any questions? And they said no, or maybe they said yes, and you got their questions. Okay, great. Let me put you on hold for just a moment, Geraldine, and check the calendar. Why would we say, let me put you on hold and check the calendar? There's a reason. What is it?
That you're giving them the
Shows
quality
you're a
of
busy
time.
practitioner.
Both of those. Yeah, both of you that I heard talking, yes. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but if I have a back problem and I call the chiropractor, she's like, sure, when are you free? I'm immediately thinking like, I need a different chiropractor. Actually, I'm not free. See ya. So I want you to just self-analyze for a minute and don't beat yourself up if you realize, oh, maybe I haven't been doing this the best way. You're here by choice to get better. So you already have the gold sticker of the day. But think of how you usually offer times to people And then imagine your doctor or chiropractor or a lawyer use the same method when you called for an appointment. Would you find value in them? Right? And if not, we need to change something. So that's part of why we do it, is it lets them know there's limited time, which will increase the chance they'll go with the time we offer. Because if there's limited time, then I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. It also lets them know we're busy, which builds value. Okay. Then you're going to come back and you're going to say, okay, it looks like we can carve out time. Carve out time. The reason we're saying carve out time is, again, it's the idea of we're going to make this happen for you. I'm going to make it work. And again, that's going to make them more likely to select the time you're about to give them. Then you're going to give them 2 options. So on the screen, it says 2 or 4. Obviously, you pick what works for you. And then you're going to say, which one will you commit to? Commit to. Not which one's best for you. Now, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with saying which one's best for you. A lot of people teach that. But have you ever watched the Olympics and it's so hard to tell who was first place or second place, and it's like 1,000th of a second? And we all watching the TV are like, how did they know? They look like they won. But what set first place and second place apart sometimes is the tiniest, tiny bit of a difference. So when you say, which one will you commit to, that language lets them know this is a commitment. It's just a slight difference, and it does make a difference. By the way, this is something I would encourage you, don't change a word. I know sometimes we're on calls and we then put the script in our own language. Please do not change this one. Make sure you use it as it is. One quick thing on offering them a time. Take a guess. If an appointment is within 48 hours, it usually will show 70 to 80% of the time, assuming you have all the right language, okay? If it's more than 48 hours, what do you think it is? What percentage? I see a 40%. Sherry's using sign language.
20.
20. It's 20%. 20%. Some of you, I love the facial reactions. Yeah, 20%. So we had people, we were like, why is this not working? They're doing the script, like everything seems right. Why are they having such a low show rate? And we studied it. And we found if it's more than 48 hours out, 20% show rate, even if you did everything right. Crazy, right? Some of you, that might be your one takeaway from today. That's it. You just got your, I would say your money's worth, but this is a free class, but you know what I'm saying. You got your time's worth. Okay.
Hey, quick question.
Real quick.
What if they have a spouse and the spouse isn't there?
We'll
and
talk
you're
about
like
that.
scheduling.
Next slide. We'll talk about it. Yeah, that's a really good question. We'll talk about that. Yeah, and I'm glad you said it. I didn't say it, but make sure all decision makers can be at this meeting, okay? So thank you for bringing that up. So then maybe you'll say, it looks like we can carve out time here or here. Which one can you and your wife commit to, or you and your partner commit to, or whoever, okay? All right, and then number 3, and I know it's kind of wordy and it all matters. It all matters. So number 3, I'm going to save this spot for you. And again, that's that idea of Sherry, I'm making it happen for you. We're gonna make this work, okay? And what that means is I'm gonna turn away anyone else that wants this spot. So now I'm letting Sherry know there is a ripple effect, right? Like if you don't show up, someone else also couldn't meet with us. So I'm again just building value. So I'm going to save this spot for you. And what that means is I'm going to turn away anyone else that wants that spot. Is there anything you can think of that would prevent you from keeping your commitment? Very purposeful wording. Very purposeful wording. Now, if they say yes, just ask, what is that? And it might be, I need to talk to my spouse. You know what the most common one is? Picking up the kids from school. That's the most common one. I think it'll work. I got to check with my spouse. I got to check with my boss, or I'll get the kids from school. So let me tell you what to do in that scenario. This is just my personality, so you can do it slightly differently. But what I like to do is say, okay, Janet, I'm going to go ahead and put your name in that spot in pencil, but I want to put you down in magic marker. So how soon can you figure out who's picking up the kids from school so you can meet with me? So we can help you downsize. or whatever their motivation is. So Eric, I definitely want to save this spot for you. I'm going to put you in pencil right now since you need to check with your spouse. But how fast can you check with your spouse? Because I want to put you down in permanent marker. And they usually kind of laugh. And what's funny, guys, it takes them from being almost like, yeah, I'll get back to you when I get back to you, to I'll call you in 5 minutes. So you want to communicate that. When I put you in this spot, I'm turning away everyone else for that spot. So can you think of anything that would prevent you from that commitment? Okay, great. Everybody good on that slide? I'll put it back up one more time if you need it for notes, and then we're going to move on. And we have one more slide, and then we'll open it up to questions. Yay, Madison, I'm glad you like the scripts. Seriously, I used to be the lowest person on my team when I first got into sales. And I actually learned this as a college recruiter. We used to use this with potential students, got into real estate and started using it with realtor clients, and it had incredible success. Teams that I've coached through the Mastering Inside Sales class, I'll usually ask them, what's your conversion rate set to held? Meaning you set an appointment, what percentage usually shows up? Commonly, I hear 40% before training. The next class, a week later, I'll say, where are you? 80%. 80%. So can you see how if you need more business, yes, more contacts might be the answer. If you're not talking to people, you need contacts, right? But what if you took the appointments, just the appointments you're already setting, and just doubled the amount of them that showed up? Would that not transform your financial world, right? So this is usually one of the best places to put your efforts. All right, last slide, and then we'll jump into, actually, I think I have two more for you, but they're quick. Okay, if they say, ooh, yeah, that time's not gonna work for me, then what you can do, I like to call it the funnel. So I might say, okay, Sherry, beginning of the week or end of the week? And they'll say, end of the week. All right, what about early afternoon or late afternoon? I didn't say morning because that's when I lead gen. That's when we lead gen, right? So early afternoon or late afternoon. Then once they answer, end of the week, late afternoon, I'm going to offer them something in that window. And if they still say it won't work, we actually have a motivation problem. Most likely. Because basically, this slide is basically saying what works for you. But what works for you, again, now you sound like the chiropractor that has way too much time on their hands, right? So I don't want to say what works for you. So I'm going to instead say beginning or end, early or late, okay, this time or this time. The way this works out in real life, someone will say, ooh, that won't work. And I'll say, okay, let me see what I can do for you, like Thursday or Friday, which one's better? So today's Wednesday, by the way, right? I need them within 48 hours. So today, Wednesday, I would actually say, is Thursday or Friday better for you? Because that's within 48 hours. And if they said Friday, I'd say, okay, let me put you on hold and see what I can find for you. And they'll interrupt and say, you know what? I can make it work. I'll do today at 4. That's real life. That is actually what they commonly do, okay? I don't want to be overly positive. You'll still have people this doesn't work for. The goal is to increase the amount of people that meet with you. You'll still have, if you don't have people rejecting you, you're just not talking to enough people, okay? So you need to have people that say, no, it won't work. If you're having 100% of the people you set appointments with show up, you're actually not setting enough appointments, okay? But the goal here is that we increase it. Now, if they still say, ugh, I'm so sorry, it's Christmas week, I can't, whatever, then get creative. This is actually the last slide. So you could say something like, hey, if you had a doctor's appointment, what would you do to work with that work schedule? See what they say. What would you do if the school called? That would be another option. So if you know they have kids, because sometimes people have in their head, I work 8 to 5. So 8 to 5 is completely full. And it's not that they're trying to hide from you. They're just not thinking like, oh yeah, if I had a doctor's appointment, I would just leave early, right? If the school called, I would figure that out. So sometimes you just have to help them think, because they're just thinking in this box of, I work 8 to 5, so I'm not free ever 8 to 5. Another thing you could do is, hey, you know, Janet, if your boss knew you wanted to buy a house, do you think he would let you leave a little early tomorrow? Something like that. Lunch break. You know, George, if your boss knew that you wanted to buy a house, do you think she would let you have an extended lunch break? Or they don't even need an extended lunch break. What I find usually is when people are like, oh, that won't work, and they're thinking of their work schedule, we know that by law for employees that work a certain amount of hours, they have to have a lunch break, right? It's required by law. Well, a lot of them just don't think about it. So if you say like, hey, I don't mind meeting with you for your lunch break. I don't, just bring your food, eat with me at the office. That's fine. Oh, I didn't even think about that. And they're often willing to make that work. Okay. Oh, I'll put the slides back up for you. If you've done the, let me put you on hold, check the calendar. Then you offered them, you know, beginning of the week, end of the week. Then you offered all this. If it's still not working, it's usually a motivation issue. Because if someone really wants to meet with you, they'll usually figure that out. I'm talking every once in a huge, great while, maybe you have the doctor who has surgeries to perform, you know, stuff like that. I'm a hard person to set appointments with because I lead webinars. So I'm not going to just not show up for a webinar for an appointment. It can take a few days. So there are people that it's legit, but it is a very small percentage, So I want to open it up for questions. If you want to learn more, here's a website you can go to. This will take you to the class that we actually have 18 weeks of language patterns like this. So Mastering Inside Sales. It is not just for inside sales agents. We have agents in there. We have team leaders in there. We have buyer listing agents, rainmakers. Basically, if you talk to humans and your goal is to have them work with you, this is a class you can use, okay? So go to isamapscoaching.com to learn more. That'll take you to the MAPS coaching page. And I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. Keep your questions specific to appointment setting because that was the context for today's webinar, just so we can stay in the theme here. So who has questions about appointment setting or these slides? And we'll hang on for about 3 or 5 minutes.
Anna, I have a question on the cost for the 18. Can you share that now? It's not about the appointments.
Oh, this for the class? It's $199 a month for 6 months. And you can have 2 people. If you're on a team, you can have 2 people from your team on there at a time. So you could have an ISA and a buyer agent, or a buyer agent, a listing agent, or just yourself. It's $1,200 for the whole class. If you get one closing out of that, you just paid for it multiple times. And you should get way more. If you don't get at least, you know, 1 extra closing a month, please call me. We need to, you'll see a lot come from that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I see a question in the chat box. What do you think of a 2 appointment system preview? I'm assuming you mean for a listing, preview, then signing. I'll be honest, when I was new, I did that. I used to preview houses and then we would meet for the listing. But as skill increased, we no longer did previews. So that's kind of a big question, but I think that answers it for you. I just look at it like, if we're going to meet, let's just meet to decide we're going to work together, and then we can come out, look at the house, or maybe you do the appointment. Some people do appointments in the office, some people do them at the house, some people do them at Starbucks. You kind of have to decide your system there. Hopefully that answers it for you. If not, let me know. For me, though, I did previews because I needed to understand the market. So once I'd been in the industry for a while, I understood the market, and I did not do previews anymore. Okay. All right, do you ever do evening appointments? Yes, you can. I think you just have to know what your schedule is. What I do recommend is time block where you want them. So for example, I used to work 1 night a week, and I pre-planned it. It wasn't oh gosh, they can't meet anywhere else. Okay, I guess I'll work this evening. It was, I had evening appointments as just part of my plan. And so if someone wanted an evening appointment, we had an evening appointment. It's ultimately up to you. But I think, honestly, I know this is a broad statement. Of course, there's always exceptions. I honestly think, though, as you're really good at scripting, you can get people to meet you during the day. It's more of a scripting thing than anything else. Because guys, if people really are serious about real estate, think about yourselves. When you're really serious about something, you figure out a way to make it work, right? You go see the doctor during doctor hours. You go to the chiropractor during chiropractor hours. So it's usually a scripting issue more than anything. So if you find that you have the occasional evening appointment, that might be fine. But if you feel like, geez, everyone wants to meet with me on evening and weekends, it's probably more of a scripting issue. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Rose Lang. So the Mastering Inside Sales, basically what you're going to focus on is the language that we use?
Yeah, so it is very heavily language patterns. I also provide 3 tracking systems for you. So numbers tracking, appointment tracking. We also talk strategy. So what time of day is best to do calls? So I would say it's probably 80, I'm guessing here, but 80% language patterns, 20, 30% strategy systems. Because you need both. You know, you could be the best communicator in the world, but if you don't know how to organize your leads, you will lose leads. Yeah.
When is it starting?
February 2nd. It's the first Wednesday in February, which sounds really far away. It's really like 6 weeks. It's actually not as far away as it sounds. Yeah, February 2nd. February 2nd.
Thank you. And does this all apply to a Zoom interview appointment as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other training right there, pretty much. But yes, the only tweak, Susan, that I would recommend is say, hey, we're going to meet on Zoom, and it's just like we're across the table from each other. And the cool thing is you're in your house and I'm in my office. Log on, 5 minutes early. And I usually like to say, because you don't have to drive somewhere, it would be easy to forget. So how could you remind yourself of our appointment tomorrow at 1? And they usually say things like, oh, I guess I could set a calendar or an alarm or something. Okay, great. Let's have you do that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, when I was a college advisor, I did almost exclusively, it wasn't Zoom back then. I feel so old. I don't remember the platform, but we did a lot of virtual appointments. And I found if I didn't ask them, how will you remember, I had a much higher no-show. But if we talked about it and just said, you're not driving anywhere, it would be so easy to forget. How can you remind yourself? They increase show rate. Okay. I see a lot of people saying, hey, is there a copy of this? And Carlos, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is recorded. Is that correct? I'm not sure if he's still here. He's the MAPS representative helping run the tech today. But I do believe that they're being recorded. Oh, Jill, thank you. Jill always has the knowledge. I know, Jill. They're being recorded and they'll be in the MAPS newsletter, which is through email. Okay, I think we're good. We're at 48 after the hour, so I want to respect your time. Guys, I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. I love this. This is like my favorite thing to do is to teach. So thanks for giving me a chance. I don't get to teach if I don't have students. So thank you for being here. I would love to see a lot of you at the February 2nd class. Again, that sounds far away and it's really not. We're going to fly through Christmas the next week. And then we just have about 5-6 weeks until that class. So February 2nd, you can go ahead and sign up. The link is live.
What's your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
Oh, I'm Anna Krueger.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys. I still have to wrap presents and shop. I don't know about you all, but I need to get on it.
Thank you, Anna.
I need to get on
Great.
it. You're welcome. Session.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here, guys. And I will see you hopefully in February.
Thanks.
Bye. Wonderful class. Very insightful.
Yay. Thank you, Dave. Y'all are filling my bucket. Awesome.
Great job, Anna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just going to hang out here and record this and play it when I'm having one of those bad days. Thank you. All right, guys.
Absolutely. You can forward to the end. So you can forward to the end so you can feel our gratitude
and
how much we gained from it. Because I gained a lot.
Awesome.
I took notes on everything. I got 2.5 pages of notes.
That's awesome. That makes me really happy. Here's a little pro tip. I'll leave you with this. And I don't remember who gave me this tip, but I got it from someone at KW. But we all have days where you just feel like you're not good at your job. Can we just all admit that? that is such a real thing, the imposter syndrome. And I'll have days where I'm like, am I good at what I do? Like, should I, what am I doing? And you have days like that. Am I a good agent? Am I a good leader? So years ago, I started a folder in my Gmail. It says feel good emails. And if someone sends me an email of gratitude or like, hey, here's how this made a difference for me, or even if I'm on a call and they verbally say it, sometimes I'll write it down real fast in my email and email it to myself. And I file them all into the feel good folder because we are good at our jobs. We just have days we feel like we're not, right? And so I like to go there. So I would just pass that off to all of you. That's your Christmas present. If you don't already have it, get an email folder that says feel good emails. And when you're just having one of those days, you'll start to have a collection of things that you can go look at and remind yourself, oh yeah, just yesterday, someone complimented me. I am good at what I do, because we all have those days. All right, we really do need to go.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys hopefully February 2nd. Have a great day.
Anna, so much.
You're welcome.